Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
We saved the best for last. Now we finally get to kick the ball.
Let's go.
There you go, Ben. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
no. With authority.
Yes. Dan's the man.
Let's go. Oh!
Okay, so if you are a Vikings fan or a Seahawks fan, then that is reminiscent of a moment that happened 10 years ago in a really cold game, I think in Minnesota. Daniel even, I don't know if he looks like Blair Walsh, but he has like Blair Walsh energy.
Wow.
Let's go, Joey.
Oh, no. Oh.
Come on, Dad, save us.
Score. Score.
Come on.
Score. Score. Yes.
It's hard to hit. It's harder than it looks.
I love you so much. But I've always wanted a partner to be on the same wavelength. And so today I can't. I'm sorry, but I don't want that to be misunderstood.
Whoa. I am shocked. I'm trying to think of a time where an answer on the altar shocked me as much as this one. Everything was headed in everything she was. I mean, I was paying attention. I'm always, where are the markers? Where are the indicators? Everything was pointing in a direction of yes. I wouldn't be surprised if she says, but I want to date. Maybe even the two of them agreed to do, I don't know. The way she talks about him, even on the wedding day, and the family was putting out a lot of feelers for like, hey, if you're not into this, go with your heart. And everything she was saying, all the things. I could rewatch. There were so many things that she said which are indicative of someone that's going to say yes. All those phrases that, I love him, he's so great. And but I guess if Sarah's personality is, if I have even a limited understanding of her personality, even in the midst of knowing that she was going to say no, she would still be kind to him and positive about him. So I guess that's the thing. But she was also saying phrases, I can't remember all of them, but things specifically about saying, I'm shocked. Yeah. Well, yeah. Huh. Well, because if there were so many other compatibilities, which she was talking about, I'm wondering if there's something more fundamental other than the political points of view or the stances on justice and fairness. I'm wondering if it's more than that. But everyone can make their decision, and that's not a strange decision. It's not even this. I've talked about this before, but the way that I talk, I hope that others are flexible to some extent. But if you asked me the question, I'd be like, fuck no. I would need complete alignment on a lot of things, including that. So I guess I'm a hypocrite, not a hypocrite, but just more rigid than I think Sarah would be, honestly. So now in my neck of the woods, it's not hard to find alignment. But, it's not like Stacey and I align exactly on everything. It's far from it, really, but we're definitely in the same category on all pretty much everything. It's hard to think of anything that, anyway. And we grew up in the same basic neighborhood and raised similarly and same age and, all that kind of stuff. So Anyway, unpredicted. Good thing I didn't put any money down. Can you bet? I bet you could bet on this. Online betting. I don't know why. But, yeah. Wow.
I still love you, and everything about you is amazing. And I care about you so much.
I care about you too. And I love you so much. And I know I want to stay with you and keep growing our relationship if you'll let me.
We'll see. We'll talk about that.
Okay. Well, maybe she will, I'm guessing if she is open, or maybe she just doesn't want to let him down in front of everybody. But if she is open, I'm guessing she would say, look, if we're going to move forward, you're going to have to commit. Or you're going to have to stop going to that church or something, like there's got to, I'm sorry, I'm not, you can say no to this, but these are some hard lines that I have. And I don't want you to comply. I want it to be of your making, that kind of thing. It was interesting. There was this little whispered conversation between Sarah's sister and her partner about the sister worrying that Sarah was going to say yes or no based on people pleasing. The sister was worried that Sarah would do what other people want her to do. The tiny little interaction that we saw between Sarah and her sister's partner when they were at dinner seemed to exhibit some of that. There was this moment where the partner said something like, I don't like that word, and went on a bit of a tangent. And then Sarah was like, well, what word should I be using? What word should I be using? And it was avoided. The answer was avoided from my memory. And then Sarah doubled down a little bit later. Well, what word should I be using? So I don't know if that's what we're seeing. And we saw a little bit of their family dynamics, but there wasn't anything noticeable. There was something going on, though, in her family. I don't know what it was. But I don't know. The way that Sarah is, I just suspect that there's a lot of health, because there just seems to be a lot. But now I'm wondering if she was obscuring, if she was hiding, if she was avoiding, if she was pleasing, then maybe there's something that was not detectable. I don't know. It kind of looks like Ben is surprised, although maybe not. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a mini conversation about this, and he might have known, and they hadn't resolved whether or not they would date afterwards, but he knew enough to know. I don't know. How do you feel about it? I guess I was kind of pulling for him, mostly for Sarah's sake. Ben, it's hard to know who he is, honestly, but Sarah seems like a stand-up person, and, you just hope for people. And I was trusting her judgment of him, and maybe they'll still work out if he changes.
To have and to hold from this day forward, to love, honor, and cherish in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, for as long as you both shall live.
I'm going to take a guess and say that she's a yes and he's a no. I could see her saying no because she thinks he's a no. All things are pointing, and there's been some explicit conversations about that at the wedding, where she is saying, I want to be with him, but I don't know if he wants to be with me. I mean, not those exact words. And it also sounds like there might be minimal physical affection between the two of them. I don't know what that means, but there was a conversation about that.
I don't right now.
Yeah, I think that was a gift that she just gave Joey, because I am quite positive that Joey was going to say no. And she is, wise to and self-preserving to say no, given that she has very little indication that he's going to say yes, or even that he really likes her and loves her. So, okay. Wow. Are any of these weddings going to be yes, yes? At one point I was like, maybe all 4 of these, and that's quickly disintegrating.
I do.
Yeah, that was predicted. And I think Virginia's going to say yes, too. At least there's no indication she's going to say no. But there hasn't been a lot of passion, at least in the edit. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised if she said no. But I guess I'd be more surprised if she said no. So I'll just put it that way.
I love you so much.
This doesn't bode well, but sometimes they'll do like a little suspense tease, you know. But I mean, I don't know how compatible they are, not just in terms of faith or religion or politics, but they don't seem to really have that thing. And maybe we wouldn't see it on camera, but yeah, I just, in my head, I don't know, and watch, she says yes, and I'm just a jerk right now, but to me, their individual vibes are different, and I could see them with a different sort of person, you know, each. You know, I could see her with a different sort of person, and him too.
I don't just...
What?
Yeah. Wow. Are none of them okay? So that just leaves Daniel and okay. Well, they must be yes. In fact, they're probably saving them for the last because you know they typically do that. Well, not all the time. I think Stacy and Izzy were last, if I remember right. Anyway, why drag everyone to a wedding? Because the reaction, it seems like all the weddings thus far, the people thought they were coming for a wedding, and they were being told by their family member that it was a wedding. And you know, I don't know. I could not do that. I can't. No, I would not be able to do that. I'm not saying anything bad about them. But it's more dramatic viewing for us.
Just not ready.
And I wonder what it is, because there was no, is it the political, maybe? If so, then interesting season.
Please stop it. You don't. I feel sad. I feel really bad that I hurt Devin and his family.
I was really going back and forth about what I wanted to do. Even when y'all left, I was like, who's going to tell me what to do?
I guess this isn't a ringing endorsement of individuals who will advocate for a prenup. This is the paranoia, usually, the distortion, that if you're asking for a prenup, you're not really in it to win it. So this isn't good PR for prenups.
I think in a lot of our relationship, I wanted to protect Devin. It was important for me to protect Devin. And I don't know if that's a cultural thing, but like, it's important. It's always been important for me to protect him. So there were even topics that like he didn't want to talk about, like politics or, you know what I mean? There was just certain things.
Okay. So we're hearing, I think, what I was wondering about. And that's interesting. She said, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. Is that a cultural thing? She's saying she wanted to protect him from having to be confronted or from having to be humiliated on camera or ganged up on by the audience, or what's the protecting? Like a forgiveness of men in particular cultures of their stubborn. I don't know what. There's a lot of possibilities, but I'm getting a vibe from what she's saying.
He just didn't want me to push on. So there was just like depths of our relationship that we didn't get to. We just didn't get there.
Yeah, we saw evidence of that in that bed conversation. Yeah, and similar with Ben, honestly, that, and I didn't show this, but Sarah said afterwards that she said no because he didn't ever bring it up again. He didn't ask her what her point of view was. He wasn't curious. He didn't engage. And yeah, I think I hadn't thought about that at the time, but that's absolutely a concern. You're bringing up things, and I think I role played something along those lines, something like, hey, I love you and I want to be with you, and I think there's a possibility that we might see things a little different, but I'm open. I can't guarantee anything, but let's talk about it. What is your point of view? And here's mine, and here's how I see it. Maybe there's some nuance there. Maybe we'll agree to disagree. Maybe you'll convince me. Maybe I'll convince you. I don't know. But let's engage instead of his approach, which is sus, that he would avoid and claim he doesn't know, or that the church doesn't talk about it, even though she watched one sermon and it was clear to her the coded language. So who knows? It's hard to know. It's hard to, Ben could just be, I don't know, not sophisticated or avoidant of it, or he has points of view, but he just is the sort of person that doesn't get into it. I think that sort of person existed more in the past, and certainly privilege allows people to do that. There were some indications that he might actually see a lot of things similar to Sarah, but I thought if he did, he would really emphasize that because it was very important to her, But we can't know. But we can say that he did not attempt to engage. He didn't say, hey, let's talk about it. And let me tell you. And you're interested. Tell me what's your point of view? Where are you coming from? If we go with his verbatim and he's like, I don't think about it, then you would imagine he'd be like, but tell me, you know a lot more than I do, so fill me in. Let me know what's going on. Like, what is Black Lives Matter? Which at the time when I saw that, I'm like, you're in Minneapolis. How is it that you would not have some knowledge or opinion? I mean, even a small bit, if not a large bit. And I thought that at the time, and then people commented and said, yeah, that is extremely odd or suspicious. So she said that. And so Virginia's saying a similar thing of he just was avoidant of it and just evaded or didn't care to get into it. And she's now kind of regretting not pushing more. She's wondering, was I holding back? Because that would be, I would imagine that Sarah and Virginia actually should, if there's one thing to learn is, well, if it was that important to me, why didn't I really drill down on it, right? Why didn't I give it a chance, or why didn't I put it to the test more? I mean, Sarah certainly did on camera more than Virginia, but if it's a matter of yes or no at the altar, and Virginia's wondering, am I protective? And then maybe Sarah's too much of a pleaser, as her sister was worried about. So, And interesting, I wonder if this is a trend of, because I've been wondering if we've been seeing more politics and religion because there just hasn't been drama to highlight. And I suspected that that religion and politics have always been, my contact on the show says that there's always conversations about it. So I was wondering about that. But then to hear at the altar, or know at the altar, and the reason is essentially, you could say, politics. That's, sort of a crude framing of it, but, that's a very concise way. And I don't think we've ever seen that before, right? So is this a trend? Is it just particular to, it's just random chance on this show? Is it a thing about Minneapolis? Is it something about, I don't know. It's interesting. And maybe we can all learn something from this. How do we navigate it? How do we investigate it? How do we allow for people to be maybe a little different? How do we clarify? And Sarah kind of did this. It's like, look, there's political views, and then there's like social justice. There's fairness. There's bigotry. That's not a political. I mean, you could argue it's associated with politics, but like the topic of slavery or the topic of racism or the topic of oppression or the topic of not letting gay people be gay, right? Requiring people to go to conversion therapy or something. Like, these are not political points of view. They are facts. They are morals. They are scientifically demonstrated, you know? So it's not a debate. And if you don't agree on these issues, you know, like, you could say to a partner, if you don't agree that men and women are equal, and you think of that as a political point of view, then we're done, you know? And, you know, you could say, oh, that's a political disagreement. It's like, no, that's a matter of human facts on the ground and also just morality, but also it's reflective of how, and it's interesting of how you're going to be treated. But I didn't comment on this, but Ben, you know, he was very giddy heading into the altar because he definitely thought that it was going to be yes. After the wedding, he indicated that, and it's believable. And he said, I can't wait to be Mr. and Mrs. Ben Mazenga. I can't remember his last name, but it, and I thought, that's such an old sexist way of, I mean, I remember my mom being referred to as Mr. Alan Honda. I remember she would get mail, or sorry, Mrs. Alan Honda, not Mr. What'd I say? She would get mail or even be addressed as Mrs. Allen. You know, it's one thing to lose your last name, but your first name, like, you don't even get your first name. Like, talk about erasure, you know what I mean? And Ben did that. And I thought, Gen Z, you still do what? Why? You know, I could see Mr. and Mrs. Ben and Sarah Mazenga or whatever, because Sarah said she, you know, wanted to take his name. You know, she was talking about that when they were at the all-cast party. Okay, but why Mr. and Mrs. Ben? You know, maybe he was just, I don't know. I saw it and I was just like, well, what? That's weird. I thought, you know, people my generation, Gen X, don't do that. I wouldn't think Gen Z. So it's like, where's he getting that from? Because it's such a, anyway, I could be reading into it, but it's a new sort of area of thought for me reacting to this, of how do you engage in this way? Because I think, at least my initial take, is that to require complete alignment is fine if that's how people want to date, but I don't know if that is wise. To hope that you'll meet someone and if they do have some awarenesses yet to be made, that you might be able to sway them in a kind way. Yeah, right? Yeah, we can't expect everyone to be outside of their echo chamber or to know things that they haven't been exposed to, you know? So, but I don't know. It's I don't know. I'm not used to thinking that way. In my neck of the woods, just almost everyone I know aligns with me naturally, just because it's Seattle. So I never have to face this. Although, you know, I do have some family members that are quite different, or seemingly anyway. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Yeah.
Differences in politics. I don't think that was a deal breaker for me. It was how the communication around that was handled. It wasn't that we saw things differently. Devin said that he was raised in a conservative household, and he just asked me if I voted with my faith in mind, and that was off-putting because...
Okay, so she's clarifying. She's saying, I didn't say no because of his particular political views. It was the way he talked about it, which is consistent with what Sarah said as well, or at least part of it. But then Virginia is now talking about, I think, a specific, I think it's both, if I'm hearing her right.
And that was off-putting because I do vote with my faith in mind. And then he didn't really want to talk about it more than that.
Marriage is a serious thing.
When I don't have peace about something that means a lot to me, Devin received a check.
I was wondering if I was going, I don't know, I'm sorry for being happy or joyous or something. I was wondering if we were going to see the wedding venue that my niece got married at a few years ago. That is it. It had a very distinctive roof. In the back was an outdoor wedding altar, and then there was also the reception area. And it was on this beautiful piece of land, rolling hills, and the back you had just this view of everything. And I was wondering, because the previous weddings, I thought, is this, because I think a lot of these contemporary wedding venues have a similar kind of vibe, the way that they've converted an old ranch house, or they've built a house that feels like a converted old ranch house, and the grounds look very familiar, and it's similar areas outside of Minneapolis. And we had a great time at that wedding. And my niece and her husband were a yes. Both doctors, both pharmacists. If you listen to my episode where I pogoed off my head, they were the two that were right there when I pogoed off my head. And they, as medical professionals, coached me through my concussion and my broken bones. I broke my sternum. Painful. And my neck, when I pogoed off my head, it was 8 months ago, and my head and neck still hurt. I've been to the physician, and they say, that's just the way it goes, and I do my stretches anyway. But yeah, that's the place. Fun. It was a great time. All my family. If you saw me posting a video in which I did a circular video around my parents while they were dancing, it was at that wedding. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.